voice of FinTech.
This episode of the Financial Market Series is brought to you by SIX, the Swiss Exchange Group. If you would like to learn more about SIX, please go to www.six-group.com.
Hello and welcome to Voice of FinTech. Today we're talking to gentlemen from SIX, Nasdaq and 12H, and we're going to talk about partnerships between the exchanges and the technology providers. What does microwave have to do with this? And how does that help both Nasdaq in Europe and SIX to achieve their objectives? So welcome to Voice of FinTech. We're going to talk to Gregor, who is head of sales of Switzerland and Europe for Equities and ETF. Henrik, who is the president of Nasdaq Helsinki and the head of European cash equities at Nasdaq in Europe, and also Reinier, who is the member of the board of 12H and a microwave company that provides the infrastructure for both SIX and Nasdaq. But we'll find out more about this and understand it hopefully much better once we talk to the gentlemen. So how are you today?
Very good. Thank you very much. Great to be here with you.
Yeah, same here. All is good. Great to be here.
All right, cool. Gregor, what is your team mandate?
All right. Thank you very much. So me and my team, we belong to the sales department of Swiss Exchange, and we're first and foremost responsible for promoting products and services to customers and to acquire new business and new clients. And on top of that, we also take responsibility for a lot of, I would say, rather business development related tasks like co-creating new products and services together with the customers. Me personally, I focus mostly on equities and ETF related topics, but I'm also responsible for selling the RF offering that we're going to talk about during this podcast.
Right.
If you allow me also to quickly introduce Swiss Exchange to your audience, for those of you who don't know what we do and what we offer in detail. We are, as you mentioned in the intro, a cash equity market based in Zurich. We offer, trading in 45 to 50,000 products across equities, funds, bonds, and structured products. And we typically trade between 4 and 7 billion Swiss francs in turnover, with a lion's share of trading being equities. So with that, we are the third largest primary market by average daily turnover in equities in Europe.
Great. And I'm going to turn over to Henrik. How does Nasdaq operate in Europe? I mean, obviously, Nasdaq, well-known technology exchange in New York. What do you do in Europe?
Yeah, Nasdaq today, it's very much a global company, and in our footprint in Europe is actually pretty big. So we're active in many areas, maybe best known also in Europe for operating markets. So we operate more than 25 markets globally, and about a third of them are actually in Europe. And we're the only exchange group that operates regulated equities markets both in the US and Europe. In Europe, we are mostly active in the Nordic and Baltic area, where we operate 7 equity exchanges, 1 commodities exchange, 1 clearinghouse, and 2 central securities depositories. And then the other part, which I think is relevant for this discussion, is that we're very much a technology company. Actually, with many measures nowadays, you could say we're more of a technology company than a traditional. What we like to say, we power more than 115 of the world's market infrastructures, i.e. exchanges, clearinghouses, CSDs, in more than 50 countries, basically end-to-end mission-critical tech solutions.
Wow, great. So, Reinier, tell us also a little bit about 12H and your role there.
Yes, 12H is a telecommunication company that provides RF services, and it's now a part of the SIX group. It's based in Zurich. And RF stands for radio frequency, which means that we send data through the air instead of using fiber optic cables. That way we can send data faster and just as reliable. Although the technology has existed for decades, we are now using it as a low latency service. Right now, we are offering our services between Zurich to Milan, Zurich to Frankfurt, Zurich to London, Milan to Frankfurt, and Milano to London. And right now, together with Nasdaq, we are laying the last hands on providing a service from London to Stockholm.
Right. So RF, I knew that I should have got a trademark for my initials, but fair enough. So SIX and Nasdaq have been technology partners in Europe since 2005, I believe, right? So what are the key goals of your partnership? And maybe let's explain as well what Henrik said about Nasdaq being a technology provider as well.
Yeah, absolutely. So, I mean, obviously, I'm referring to Henrik's introductory statement. Swiss market, Swiss exchange, we run on a platform called X3Minet, which is provided by Nasdaq Technologies, right? So we're extremely happy with the platform. It's really very deterministic with respect to latency. It's fast, it's reliable. And so over the years, we have developed really good relations with, both top management as well as working levels on Nasdaq side. I think that provided also a good basis to pursue working together here on this project. So to partner up on RF. And so we're happy to join forces with Nasdaq. And ultimately, obviously, the key goal is to successfully grow the 12H network and to further democratize low latency access in a fair and equal manner.
All right. And from Nasdaq's perspective?
Yeah, from Nasdaq's point of view, obviously we are extremely proud to have been a key technology partner to SIX since 2005, and SIX is really using a pretty wide range of Nasdaq offerings. So it's the matching engine, i.e. the basis of trading equities nowadays. Then additionally, it's pre-trade risk systems as well as market surveillance systems that SIX is using, provided by Nasdaq. And then if you look at the SIX group, it's actually also then a company called SIX Financial Information is also using Nasdaq's index calculator. And then on top of that, we have SIX XClear, also part of the SIX group that's currently implementing clearing and risk management systems provided by Nasdaq. So we really have a pretty kind of, I dare say, extensive partnership with SIX.
Oh, wow, great. And obviously, SIX acquired a majority stake in 12H, right, earlier this year. So what was your strategic rationale for the transaction, if you can share a little bit with the listeners here?
Absolutely. So I think I want to look quickly back at how it all started, if I may. So as I mentioned, the sales team of SIX, we really want to understand every aspect of trading in as much detail as possible. So there are dozens of things and dozens of aspects that matter when it comes to trading, amongst others like, securities characteristics, market participants, market models, etc. We care a lot about our trading ecosystem, and fair and equal access are really cornerstones of not only our exchange, but probably all exchanges around the globe. And so in 2016, when we started having first initial conversations with what was back then known as 12 Horizons. So Reinier's former company, they were the only RF provider that offered routes from and to Zurich. And they ran a commercial model that we liked, and they were keen to also further expand the network, i.e. building the route from London to Zurich. But with all due respect, they were a relatively small firm. And, we were concerned back then that a single market participant would just purchase 12 Horizons and monopolize low latency access to the Swiss market. And we didn't want this to happen, and hence decided that we want to have some sort of control over the network and ideally over the company, because what we ultimately want to do is we want to provide and promote a level playing field, and we want to, commoditize and democratize low latency access. So, just before, I think, Christmas 2017, we announced the erection of 12H. That is a joint venture between SIX and Reinier's former company, 12 Horizons. And initially, we were only able to acquire a minority stake in the company. However, we already back then had plans to buy more stakes once the time is right and, the opportunity is there. And so I think, 2020 provided the opportunity to make that step and to become the majority shareholder, which I think is great for us. It's great for the customers, and it also underlines the commitment of SIX towards the business and the service.
And obviously, the deal has two parties at least, right? So what's the rationale for Reinier to sell a majority to SIX?
The rationale was that the company was growing, and we needed a partner. And we looked around and searched for a party that closely matched our vision. And that's trying to create this service for the most customers. And the first part of the deal was that SIX would get a minority share, but the whole back office, so the legal, the sales, the risk, were all transferred to SIX. And we took that opportunity of those 2 years to look whether the cooperation went well and whether our visions were aligned. And it turned out to be a great relationship where everybody was extremely happy. So it was just a formalization of the next step to make SIX the majority owner of the company. And it sounds a bit corny, but it's really a success story where a smaller company is taken over by a large firm and can retain its own identity and move forward with the plans that they both subscribe to.
All right, great. So you kind of talked about 12H at the beginning. How does that work? But can you describe as an example and paint a picture? How does that work, right? I mean, you said RF provider, but sometimes you also described as a largest low latency microwave provider in Europe. So what does that mean? Do you build antennas around the continent, or do you leverage what's already out there, or should we look for some hidden microwaves in the forest, or what?
Always look for hidden microwaves in the forest. That's a key part of our business. Now, joking aside, what we do is we analyze a route and see whether there's interest in improving the latency on that route. And then pretty much we draw a straight line between the two exchanges where the matching engines are hosted. And we try to find towers or high buildings or structures where we can place our hardware on, so we can build the most ideal route. If there are none of these available, we can build our own. We send the data through the air. And that's a big difference with a fiber optic offering. Fiber optic goes under the ground and mostly follows like highways or railroads or rivers, and usually completely bypasses cities. So that means that usually a fiber optic route is a lot longer than a straight line between two locations.
Right.
Furthermore, with fiber optics, if you have the fiber, a piece of data or light doesn't travel at a straight line through the cable. It bounces off the walls, which is called refraction. So it means that the data actually goes at around 71% of the speed of light. So if you can build in a straight line and send it at the speed of light, which microwave allows you to do, you can be almost twice as fast as the fiber solutions. That's mostly what we do.
All right, so kind of beat me to it. I wanted to talk about comparison versus optical fiber along certain dimensions. So speed obviously speaks for your technology very clearly. What about capacity or stability and the costs?
Every upside has a downside. So the biggest downside is the bandwidth. If you have a fiber, you can put as much fiber pairs in there as you can. So you can put terabytes upon terabytes on such a fiber, and you can resell it. So people don't really have to shape their data. With RF, we've got a limited amount of bandwidth. Usually it's around 120, between 100 and 150 Mbits per second. So what we do is we've got, for example, 120 Mbits, and we carve it up into pieces of, let's say, 5 or 10 Mbits or 20 Mbits, whatever the amount of customers want. And we lease that to customers. So the biggest downside is actually the capacity. With regards to availability, the fiber is a little bit more, has a little bit better availability due to the fact that our service might have an outage of 10th of a second or maybe a second if there's really bad weather. But the biggest upside in our service is whenever we've got a problem, we usually fix it within an hour or 4 hours. Whereas if there is a fiber cut, the fiber can be out for weeks, or when it's somewhere in a difficult place to reach, it can be months if you talk about a subsea cable. The final part is the costs. We pride ourselves to the fact that we can offer this service usually at the same price as the quickest fiber. Although you get less bandwidth, the price is the same. So if a customer is able to use the limited amount of bandwidth by shaping its data, they can have the fastest service at the same price as the fastest fiber.
Right, great. So we talked about the technology, we talked about SIX and Nasdaq, your history, 6 and 12H. But when you put it together into, let's say, a triangle that you are, what is the ultimate benefit of your three-way partnership, versus investors, for example, right? Is this access to stocks, or is it, obviously a sale in your case, or the speed, or all of this? What are the key benefits, maybe just 2 or 3, coming out of that kind of partnership?
Before we answer this question, maybe I should elaborate a little bit what the cooperation actually entails to make the offering clear to our listeners. The most important thing is that RF Nordic Express, which the joint venture is named, is a joint venture between 12H, who is part of the SIX group, and Nasdaq. And we are planning on providing a service from London to Stockholm. And the setup of the joint venture is pretty much that Nasdaq will take care of the service and the sales and do everything on that side. And 12H will provide the actual link to the joint venture. So that's a little bit background information with regards to the cooperation.
Right. And then if you take a step back and maybe look at it from a bigger picture view, Gregor from SIX, what is the ultimate benefit for you in this three-way partnership?
Right. I think that ultimately the major benefit is that you have really two exchanges, two dominant players who know their market inside out. So there's a lot of market expertise on the Nordic side with Nasdaq, and there's a lot of expertise with the Swiss market on the SIX side, and together we can really get the best product out for our customers. I think also from a pure commercial perspective and from a capital perspective, it's great to join force and also to further upgrade the routes, to further invest into the technology, and to further grow the market ultimately.
For Nasdaq really the main interest in this is first off, the partnership of course makes a lot of sense as we were able to leverage and the knowledge base related to RF technology that's been built up into 12H and 6. And of course, then being a driver here ensures something that's very important to us, which is fairness, i.e. we're able to ensure that all investors are basically on the same speed level when it comes to accessing the markets, and that's really one of the additional drivers for us to want to be working with this kind of a offering.
My next question is fairly broad, even though I'm trying to narrow it to a manageable piece, because otherwise we could talk about it for 3 hours. But since you come from exchanges background, what is your long-term vision of trading equities? And I mean only on one dimension, which is humans versus computers. How much of the technology will replace the humans altogether or not? What is your view on this?
So maybe let me start first again, and I want to start by quoting some figures from a SIFMA report from end of last year. So SIFMA, for those who don't know it, is a Securities Industry and Financial Markets Association based in the United States. And they published in 2019 a report that says that they estimate that around about 80% of global cash equity trading is electronic these days. They even referred to futures trading being 90% electronic these days. I think obviously it's a relatively broad question, but my personal opinion is that this figure will only go up. I think that both the institutional as well as the retail investors will more and more take advantage of algorithms, right? So, electronification, algorithmification, etc., is here to stay and will only grow. And for instance, you as a retail investor or me as a retail investor, we can already also see the rise of robo-advisors, so algorithm-driven financial planning tools, etc., that are being used by mom and pop investors basically to allocate capital. I think for us as a marketplace, that holds also true. We also, invest into new technology. We also invest into interesting execution mechanism in order to cater for the need of an efficient trading and an electronic execution facility.
All right, but many people are afraid of robots taking over their jobs and taking over the tasks, at least from them. In your context, I think, what are the safeguards against, for example, flash crashes? How does that work? How do you see this happening? If you were to address some of the concerns, if you think about delegating everything to the machines, how is that going to work on equities market?
On the first one, the fear of losing jobs. I mean, as I see it, the increased use of algos, for example, to trade equities, that's really primarily enabled folks to spend their time in more demanding tasks. So I think when you look at the overall employment within finance, I mean, the numbers are still pretty strong. Though, admittedly, when you look at the franchise of trading, then yes, it is true that the use of algos has replaced a lot of jobs. But then again, the outcome of that has been actually very good for the investors, as the markets today, I dare say, are, no matter how you look at it, they're clearly more efficient, more accessible, more fair than they've ever been. If you just look at the spreads, for example, that you can see today in for example, in the equities markets. And then again, the kind of the fear of machines kind of doing something that they're not supposed to do, like flash crash happened back in the day on the US markets. The good news is that there's been a lot done lately, also by the regulators actually, to make sure that basically not just the exchanges, but also then the banks and brokers offering access to trade equities on exchanges nowadays have a lot of safeguards in place to ensure that, for example, dramatic price movements just cannot happen actually. On the Nasdaq markets, we call them the mechanisms volatility guards, which basically they kick in and discontinue the continuous trading of equities if certain parameters are reached. So, for example, if an algo starts misbehaving, then that's going to be catched actually quickly, very quickly indeed. It's automatic, resulting in the share price basically never being able to decrease or increase by more than a certain percentage in a rapid time frame. So I dare say that things are pretty well controlled when it comes to the fear of anything like flash crash, as an example.
Okay, I see. Understood. I mean, so now you have a joint venture up and running. You have a partnership up and running. So what's in store for you for the rest of the year? Are there any major milestones you want to hit and you can share with us?
All right, so focusing on the Swiss market first, we've just recently in June completed the acquisition of a majority stake in BME, the Spanish stock exchange group, and so that will for sure keep us busy. The combined group will become the third largest market infrastructure provider in Europe and in a top 10 player globally. So there are exciting projects lying ahead of us, and a lot of work will go into that. And besides that, obviously, when we look at our market offering, we're looking at launching new market model for ETF trading, especially for the efficient trading of block liquidity. We look at potentially launching also block trading facilities in the equity space. We have initiatives on the way in the bond market to automate the bond issuance process called 6 Deal Pool. So, there are plenty of interesting projects and exciting initiatives lying ahead of us. And so, let's see what the future brings, but we're positive.
Great. And Reinier and 12H?
First is finishing the London to Stockholm route. We are hoping to be live in a couple of weeks. It's been an incredible achievement by the whole team by building this link during the COVID-19 period. So that's short term. And long term, we are 100% focused on growth. We are looking to expand our footprint in Europe. And most of all, we are really eager to offer these services to everyone that wants it, and we are trying to accommodate everyone that would like to use these kinds of services. So we are both looking to increase our footprint and the amount of customers that we can provide these services to. So it's going to be an exciting future for the next couple of years. And both SIX and Nasdaq have been extremely helpful in trying to obtain those goals.
Great. And Henrik and Nasdaq in the Nordics?
Yeah, for Nasdaq in Europe, there's a lot we continue doing. Main focus, of course, is enhancing the markets further, as well as growth, of course, especially in the area of data and technology. That's where we see the most growth going forward. So we continue in those areas. Maybe worth mentioning separately the ESG, i.e. sustainability related efforts. We have been very active in that space for years now, and clearly that seems to continue being a very, very strong trend, where we see that the markets have a lot to do to really improve the situation when it comes to topics like global warming and so forth. So we continue actively helping the listed companies as well as investors with the ESG-related matters.
Right, great. So my last question is to each of you, where can interested parties reach you and find out more about what you do? And also, what kind of parties would be the most relevant for you to help you on your journey, whether that would be investors or clients or banks, etc.? I start with Gregor, for example.
Well, obviously, a good point of contact is always the website. So visit us on six-group.com. And you can really find out more about, what the group does, what we offer, particularly in the exchange space. And for folks who are specifically interested in RF and the 12H collaboration, then six-group.com/microwave will lead you to our subsite where you can find all the routes and all the contacts, etc. So besides that, obviously, you can find me, or the audience can find me on LinkedIn. So if there are any questions related to trading, related to 12H, microwave, etc., people can feel free to just get in touch with me.
Yeah, well, for Nasdaq, we obviously have a lot of material as well as contact information on our website for the relevant services we provide. And then on the RF space, obviously, I'm available for any contact, for example, via LinkedIn, and then we have dedicated salespeople. For the connectivity-related offerings, also available, the contacts on our website. So that's a good place to start.
People can reach 12H via either SIX or Nasdaq. The information has just been given by Henrik and Gregor. And I would also like to emphasize that if there are any parties that are interested in RF services and not using it right now because of cost or bandwidth limitations, please contact us, because we can help more people get on the service and make this service more available to everyone.
Okay, that's great. So thank you very much, Reinier, Henrik, and Gregor, and good luck to SIX, Nasdaq, and 12H.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
This episode of the Financial Markets Series was brought to you by SIX, the Swiss Exchange Group. If you would like to learn more about SIX, please go to six-group.com.